Hi, I'm Gavin Hoey, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to take your pictures and turn them into a pencil sketch effect. Now I've already got my picture open on the screen here, and before I go too far I need to make a copy of this picture so we have two identical versions. And we do that by going to Image and Duplicate Image. We get an option to name it something different, but I'll leave it at the default name, and there we go. I now have two pictures exactly the same. Now, you might be thinking, why have I done that? Well, it'll become clearer as we go on, so let's just get rid of the duplicate for a while. We don't need that until a little bit later on in this tutorial. So we're back to our original picture again. We're going to need several different layers in this picture. So let's go for the background layer here and copy it. So if I drag it down to the new layer icon, I'll get a duplicate of that layer. And once more, so I ended up, in fact, with 3 layers in total. So that's the preparation done. I'm going to start off now by making a sketch effect, just the outline of these apples. And I'm going to do that by working on this top layer here. We can see at the moment the blend mode is set to normal. If I change that and we go for something different, in fact we'll use difference. Look what happens to the picture. It goes absolutely black. And this is where the fun starts. Let's get the move tool, and if we just nudge it using the cursor keys on the keyboard, as I move it, you'll see the picture start to come back through. And what's happening here is with the difference blend mode, we're starting to see the differences between the two layers. When they were exactly on top of each other, there was no difference, so it was black. As I'm nudging it, we're starting to see the outline appear. And the more you nudge it, the more of an outline you get. And this is quite sort of a personal thing. How much of an outline are you going to have? I think round about there looks good for me. Once I'm happy with that, let's flatten these two layers down. We go to Layer and Merge Down. That'll flatten the active layer with the layer underneath it. And now you can see we're down to just the 2 layers. But it doesn't really look like a pencil sketch. It's a little bit sort of black, more like an etching really. So let's change things around a little bit. If we go to Image, Adjustments and Invert, that'll change it around so now we have mostly a white background, but we still have the sketchy effect showing through. And the trouble is, it's a bit sort of colourful. If this was a pencil sketch, it would really be just sort of black or grey. So to take away the colour, we'll go to Enhance, Adjust Colour, and Remove Colour. And there we go, that takes away the colour, and we're just left with quite a nice looking pencil outline. Now I want to put some colour actually in the apple areas later on in this tutorial, but I'm going to set that up now. So if I just switch that top layer off and make sure I'm working on the background layer, I want to remove some of the detail so we end up with just the colours and not the detail. I'm going to do that by using a filter. So if I go to Filter, down to Noise, and there's one called a Median filter in there. Now that has quite a nice effect. It actually removes detail but keeps the colours without sort of bleeding too much. So if we increase the amount, you should see here we actually increase the sort of blurry effect. But I've kind of lost the top of the stem there, so we're going to come back and set the radius to around about 20 or so, and that should just give us enough detail still that we can actually see the stem. Say OK to that, and we'll wait for that to do its thing. There we go. OK, let's put that picture down to the bottom for a moment and go back to our duplicate picture we made right at the start. Now with this picture I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to use this image to make the sketchy inside of the picture, the kind of the pencil filling part of things. I'm going to use another one of Photoshop's standard filters, but for it to work effectively we need to make the image much smaller. I'm going to do that by changing its image size. So let's go to Image, Resize, and Image Size. Here we can see the standard size we have at the moment. Now for some filters to work effectively they have to be actually quite small images. I'm going to change the height to 750 pixels. So we've gone from quite a large file size to quite a small file size. We'll say OK to that. There we go, we can see our picture's got a bit smaller, so let's just fit that back onto the screen. And now let's apply a filter. If I go to Filter, Photoshop comes with some very nice sketch filters. The one we're going to use is the charcoal filter. Here we go, here's the filter, we can see in the preview what it's going to do, and this is the effect I was after, this kind of stripy effect. Now you can change the effect by changing some of the settings. so you can have it lighter or darker as you wish. I'm going to go for around about 75. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Quite a bit of detail. Yeah, no, we'll leave the detail at the top. And the thickness, well, it's personal preference. I'll go for something around about in the middle, I think. I'll say OK to that. And there we go. Now we can see the effect has taken place on the image. So let's go back to our original picture again. Here we go. We can see now we've got two pictures side by side, but I want to combine these into one single image. I'm going to do that by making sure, first of all, I'm working on the newly filtered image that we've just done. I'm going to get the Move tool and click anywhere on this image and drag it onto the other one. And if I hold Shift as I go, when I let go, I should find it centers itself quite neatly in the middle of the picture there. Okay, with that in place, I can lose this picture now. It's just in the way, so we'll get rid of that. And here we can see on the Layers palette, I've now got the new layer floating between the other two. The only trouble is, of course, where we reduced it in size, it's actually quite small in the picture. But because I've got Show Bounding Box and the Move tool active, I can now resize it by dragging these little handles out. Like that. And like that. And then pressing Enter just to make sure that actually happens. Okay, so it's now time to start blending some of these layers together. So let's reopen the top layer, which we closed earlier on, and actually change its blend mode from normal down to multiply. When I do that, we can now see a combination of the filled in sketch we did a minute ago combined with the outline sketch we did at the beginning. Okay, let's just flatten those two layers down again. Layer and merge down. So we're back down to two layers once more. If you look quite close at this image though, there is a little bit of a problem forming. A lot of these edges are very hard and very digital, I suppose, really, and not very pencil sketchy. So I'm just going to soften these slightly. If we go to Filter and Blur and Gaussian Blur, let's bring that up a little bit. I just want to soften the edges just a touch, maybe just sort of 1 or so pixels, just so we can actually see, if I can move that, a softer edge there. Take it slightly away from a computer generated picture. Okay, there we go. Right, and I've also got some paper to give this picture a bit of texture as well. So here we go, I've got a picture that I took of some crumpled paper, which I think will add a nice bit of colour and detail into the image. So let's add that to our picture. Let's get the Move tool and do the same technique again. Click anywhere inside, drag it across with Shift held, and that should centre it nicely on the picture. And then shut down the original. Here we can see it on the Layers palette. It's appeared at the top of the layer stack. So I'm just going to reorder these slightly and just drag it to the middle of the layer stack. Now we can actually see our sketchy effect again, but we can't see anything underneath it. So we need to do a little bit of work on the blend modes here. Starting with the top layer, let's set that to soft light. There we go. Look, now we can see the sketch effect applied over the top of the paper, which actually looks quite nice. It gives a nice sort of brown colour. And then on the paper itself, let's change that to darken. There we go. And that should then allow the colour from the base layer here to come through and appear on the paper layer. That's looking pretty good. There it is. Now I've got one final element I'd like to add into the picture. Let's just open the picture here. And that's a nice sort of painterly border effect, just to give it a nice final touch. So let's bring that into the picture in exactly the same way again. Should be getting the hang of it by now, I should think. Get the Move tool, click inside the picture you want to add, drag it onto the main picture whilst holding Shift and let go. There we go, close that one down. Now this time I want to make sure that goes to the top of the layer stack. There we go. But it's hiding everything underneath it. So really what I need to do, just to change the blend mode of this one, and there's a clever little blend mode called Screen, and there we are. That's what Screen does. It allows everything black in the layer to become invisible and show everything else through it. So all the white edges stay where they were, and we get this lovely painterly border effect around the edge. That's pretty much the image done. There's always a few little things you can do, just a bit of housekeeping measures. For example, set your image, your foreground colour to white, get a paintbrush and work on the sketch layer, and you can just sort out some of those problem areas if you've got your sketch effect gone too much there. Alternatively, just get the darken tool and just burn in the corners of the image if you want to just darken it down. Like so. And you can play around with this image for quite some time to achieve the most realistic looking sketch effect you can.